President, please be seated. The chamber announced the continuation of the hearing of the testimony of the witness, and the floor is given to the International Co-Deputy Co-Prosecutor to continue asking questions to the witness.
Good afternoon, sir. I just have a few more questions. You told us this morning that the Vietnamese were considered at that time the hereditary enemy. Can you explain where it was you heard this?
I was a soldier in Division 164. After 1976, there was a training, and they announced clearly about the hereditary enemy of the Khmer.
Thank you, sir. We would appreciate a few more details if you can recall back to that training. First of all, can you remember where it took place?
The training was given at the battalion. And there were small training at different local units. So there were training at each battalions in all battalions in the division.
Who would attend the training? Who was being instructed? The trainer was the commander of each battalion who received the order from the upper level. Did all of the soldiers or sailors in the battalion, were they all in attendance or required to attend, to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, it was the policy of the Communist Party of Cambodia. They announced that all soldiers in Division 164 needed to attend the training.
Now, sir, when you had a training like this, how serious was it for those of you that had to attend? Were you allowed to debate and say, I don't agree with what's being taught?
At that time, when we studied about the hereditary enemy, so no one dared to debate about what we were taught about the hereditary enemy, and we needed to follow what we were taught.
Thank you for helping us with that. Now, what exactly did the instructors say about the hereditary enemy, the Vietnamese?
We were instructed to kill even it was a baby, because they are our hereditary enemies, so we must kill them. So it was the responsibility of each battalion to enforce this instruction.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any further questions at this time.
President, thank you. Now the floor is given to lead co-lawyers for the civil party. You have the floor now.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, witness. My name is Marie Giro, and I am representing the Consolidated Group of Civil Parties, and I have a few brief questions to put to you this afternoon. Mainly, I will be asking you to clarify answers you gave this morning. First of all, this morning, you stated that you attended 2 technical training sessions, a naval training before you were assigned to work on the island before you joined Division 164. Did I properly understand your testimony this morning?
Yes, I was trained at the military school. When I joined the Navy, yes, I attended the training.
Pouvez-vous nous dire où?
Can you tell us where that training took place?
My school that trained me in military about the Navy, it was at Dam Nak Sdach. Later on, the training was conducted at Koh Manor. So there were 2 training schools. So I completed my training at Koh Rong. And then back to Sokha Hotel.
Combien de temps ont duré ces 2 sessions de formation?
For how long did the 2 training sessions last, if you do remember?
Thank you for your question. I was trained for 3 months.
Qui étaient les formateurs?
Who were the instructors who conducted those training sessions, if you do remember?
Thank you. My instructors named Chom. He was the trainer about the naval military tactics. And Chom, he studied from China. After he completed his training in China, he came to train us.
Est-ce que votre instructeur était...
Was your instructor Khmer who had undergone studies in China, or you also had Chinese instructors?
Thank you. When I was trained at my first school in Dam Nak Sdach at Ochetil Port, the Chinese participated in the training for about half a month only, and then Chom completed his study. So he's a Khmer person, but he received his training from China. For the Chinese instructor, they could not speak Khmer, but they had the interpreter to help interpret during the training.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. I have a question regarding the Chinese instructors that you saw during the first part of your training at Rochetil. When the Chinese instructors were present, did you see any senior officials or high-ranking officers present and who were accompanying the Chinese instructors during that training session?
There weren't. There were only the Chinese instructor coming by vehicle with their interpreters.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. You stated shortly before I took the floor from the International Co-Prosecutor that you attended a training session in the battalion and during which you were instructed to kill the Vietnamese. Do you know whether your instructors had they themselves attended training sessions before they conducted the training session you attended?
Before the training, my teacher asked for my teacher before the training. I did not know about what he did. So I knew only that he came to teach me at Rochetil training school.
Je voudrais vous lire
I would like to read out to you an answer you gave during one of your interviews, and I'm referring here to document E319/23.3.44. Question answer 33 in all three languages. You were reacting to what you stated a while ago to the International Co-Prosecutor, that is, that you received training on the fact that the Vietnamese were the hereditary enemies. And the question that was put to you was as follows. How come you knew all that? And your answer was because the commanders of the battalions and regiments underwent training with the division, and when they returned from the training, they taught us about this in training sessions. Does this refresh your memory? And did you know during that period that the instructors had they themselves received training at the level of the division?
Yes, thank you. At the level of the battalion and regiment, who went to study at the division level, they came back and gave instruction at all battalions of the division.
et où se trouvait l'état-major de la division.
And where was the headquarters of the division?
It was based at a roundabout near the theater in Kampong Saum city. It was the command headquarters.
Avez-vous déjà entendu à l'époque
During that period, had you already heard your superiors say that they had gone to Phnom Penh to receive training?
At that time, I was a soldier within the battalion 622. I did not know about the affairs of the upper level. I knew only about the affairs at the battalion level.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. This morning, you stated that when you intercepted a ship, what matters was to know whether those on board were armed or not. And it didn't matter whether they were military or civilian persons. And you were answering a question put to you by the co-prosecutor regarding persons of Vietnamese origin who were arrested on territorial waters you patrolled. Did I properly understand your testimony this morning?
Yes, I did answer like that.
Pouvez-vous expliquer un petit peu plus?
Can you explain in further detail the instructions you received when you intercepted a vessel on territorial waters you were patrolling?
Comment pouviez-vous savoir?
How were you able to identify the origins of the persons on those vessels? How could you know whether they were soldiers or not, or whether they were armed or not? Can you describe to us the procedure you followed to do such an identification?
At that time, I was a naval soldier. I did not go out. Only those in a different patrol unit that went out. For my unit, we rarely went out. Only when we received the order from the upper level that we went out. So in my unit, there's people who were responsible for patrolling, and there were other people who were responsible for other. For me, I rarely went out.
Je vous remercie. Je voudrais vous lire un extrait.
Thank you. I'll read out to you an extract of an answer you gave to the investigators, and then I'll ask you to make some clarifications. I'm still dealing with document E319/23.3.44, and it is answer number 25. And I will start reading. In the middle of your answer, this is what you stated. In cases where we seized the Vietnamese boats, sometimes we received orders to shoot and kill them on the spot and bring only the boat to the island. In general, when we captured less than 20 people, they ordered us to kill them on the spot. If we arrested more than 20 people, we had to send them to Ho Chi Minh. Do you confirm, Mr. Witness, that that was the order you received during that period, and that one of the criteria given to you was to count the number of persons on board the vessels?
Yes, that's true. At that time, I noted that when there was a capture of each vessel, there was order from the top that the arrested people needed to be sent to on land, but if the number of arrested people were just only a few people, and then the order was that they needed to be killed on the island, and only the vessel were brought to land.
Avez-vous compris à l'époque la raison?
Did you understand at the time the reason for the order to make the distinction between a vessel with many people and another vessel with a lesser number of people?
I could not understand the questions because it's not, the microphone is not hearing well.
Je vais répéter.
I will repeat the question.
Vous m'entendez, monsieur le témoin?
Can you hear me, witness? Yes? I just read out to you an answer you gave to the investigators, in which you said that if we arrested more than 20 people, or rather, if we arrested less than 20 people, we had to execute them on the spot, and if we arrested more than 20 people, we had to send them to Ochetil. During that period, did you know why the distinction was made between vessels on which there were more than 20 people and vessels on which there were less than 20 people?
Based on my understanding at that time, when the number of people were less, there was an order of to kill on the spot because they did not want to bother with interrogating them. Only when it was a larger number that they were arrested and brought on land to ask to interrogate about what was happening in Vietnam and in Cambodia.
Je vous remercie. Je n'ai plus de questions.
Thank you. I have no further questions for the witness, Mr. President.
President, Judge Laven have some question to put to the witness. Judge Laven, you have the floor now.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I will indeed put a few questions to you with a view to clarifying your life experiences. If I properly understood what you said this morning, you did say that you joined the army, that is the Revolutionary Army, in 1973. Did I properly understand what you said this morning?
That's not correct. I said in the morning that I joined the army from 1972. That is in May 1972. It's not 1973, but it was in 1972.
Donc, à cette époque,
So during that period, it was the army of the FUNC, that is the National United Revolutionary Front, which was a CPK army. Were you a member of the Kampuchea Communist Party?
I was not the party member. I was an ordinary soldier. And I joined the army in 1972 to 1975. So from 1972 to 1975, I was still an ordinary soldier. Not as a cadre.
en 1975, où étiez-vous?
Where were you in 1975?
Ou quel combat avez-vous participé?
And in which combat or fighting did you participate?
In 1975, after the Liberation Day of 17 April 1975, I left the military from Kampot province and joined the division in that year.
Le 17 avril 1975,
On the 17th of April 1975, you participated in the fighting for the liberation of Phnom Penh, or you were in the region of Kampot?
I was at Kampot at that time.
donc vous étiez à Kampot et ensuite vous êtes parti.
So you were in Kampot and you subsequently went to Kampong Sam. Did you leave immediately after the 17th of April 1975, or you stayed on and left later on?
after the liberation of Kampot province, I went to Kampong Saum. My unit assigned me to Kampong Saum. And at that time at Kampong Saum, the situation was still chaotic. Only after my group arrived there, that the soldiers were mobilized at Kampong Saum city.
Est-ce que lorsque vous étiez à Kampot,
While you were in Kampot, that is after Kampot town was liberated, and when you arrived in Kampong Saum, did you receive specific instructions regarding the former soldiers of the London regime and former officials of the London regime? What do you remember in that regard?
About these stories, the instruction from the battalion as well as the instruction from the regiment, they order soldiers and the 17th April people to be evacuated from the city so that the soldiers would be easy to organize things in the city.
est-ce que vous savez si par la suite il y a
Do you know whether thereafter lists of persons who had been soldiers or officials of the London regime were drawn up? And while you were in Kampong Saum, did you witness any arrests?
Answer. After the investigation, the military units and soldiers were not allowed to have any contact with the people. It depended on the upper level who organized the base area.
So what you mean is that you received orders to evacuate the cities, and that once the cities were evacuated, you had no role to play. They were therefore higher units or other people who would take care of the people who were evacuated. Is that what we must understand?
But
Answer, yes, that is correct.
This morning, you explained that at one point in time, you were punished because you were suspected, and you spoke about some of your comrades who had been sent to a re-education center at Tolsap. I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but can you confirm this? Is it there where your mates were sent?
បាទជាការពិតណាស់
Answer. That is true. My close colleagues were arrested and held at Tuksap, and trust was withdrawn from me. They had no longer trusted me since I had a close colleague who were considered a bad element. I was not detained at the Tuksap, but I was assigned to work the field. At that time, I was sent to Tuksap.
Do you know which kind of person was detained at Tuksap? Were there only servicemen who were detained there, or also 17 April people? Who was detained over there?
Answer. They were all soldiers. No 17 April people or former officers were detained at Tuksab. Only the military or soldiers from the regiment were sent there to be detained.
I understood from what you told us this morning that some of your comrades had been arrested and detained at Tuksat because they had written things that were not acceptable. So do you know why the other servicemen were detained at Tuksat?
Answer. Generally, the soldier who I had known from 164 were sent there since they had some, activities against the regime. That is the true incident happening at that place.
Well, I'm going to try to clarify this. Do you remember if when you were a serviceman, you were obliged to write out your biography? And if that is the case, what did you have to include in your biography?
Answer. 1975 was the Liberation Day. After the screening of the soldiers by including in the biography, the biography of personal details, I myself had relatives and father who had been a former soldier. So for those who were linked to the former officials were removed from the division or from the military units. So that is true that all soldier servicemen had to make biography.
Were you asked to write this biography once or several times?
Answer. Not once. It happened 2, 3, or 4 times per year. Perhaps 5 times per year. So after we made the first biography, we had to declare for the second time our personal details in the biography, whether we had any bad elements linked to family background. And if it happened that we had a bad background or biography, then that bad biography would be retained and kept forever.
Donc, ceux qui avaient des mauvaises biographies.
So those who had bad biographies and particular those who had relatives who had worked as servicemen for the London regime or who had been London officials were cast aside. So what did that mean? Were they set aside? Were they taken away? Do you know where these people went? And do you know what happened to them?
Answer. In 164 of military units, there was a mobile unit headed by Da Chai. Those who were linked to bad elements would be put in one group. For instance, if I had a father who was linked to CIA or KGB agent, I would be removed into a mobile unit which was tasked with working the field near Bobos to the north of Smart Dai. That was the place to place or house those who were linked to the former tendency.
Donc, je comprends qu'il y avait des...
So I understood that there were soldiers who were sent to Tuxat, and that was a detention center or re-education center. And they were also soldiers who had bad biographies and who were set aside and who were sent to mobile units. Were you sent to a re-education center or were you sent to a mobile unit?
Answer. That is the example. In fact, I was not relocated to a mobile unit. Why wasn't I relocated to that mobile unit? It was because I was trying my best to refashion myself at that time. I bore the situation. I was doing my utmost to work. Seeing this, I was not relocated to the mobile unit. I was instead sent to... In fact, I was trusted by my battalion and regiment, so I was kept. So it depended on the offenses committed by the servicemen. If they committed severe acts or severe infraction, they would be sent to Tuxap. And for those who had linked to the former Lunar regime, would be sent to a mobile unit. Once again, for those who were linked to secret agent CIA or KGB, were sent to a mobile unit which was considered a place to house the light offender.
Can you give us an idea? Were there many soldiers who were sent to Tuxaat? Were there many soldiers who were sent to the mobile units? And would they say that certain people had ties with the CIA or the KGB?
បាទអរគុណណាស់ហើយ
Answer. Let me inform the chamber once again. There was a mobile unit Actually, the mobile unit housed those who had relatives who were linked to the former tendency. For instance, if I had relatives who were linked to the former tendency, I would be sent to the mobile unit headed by Dajai, and this mobile unit was tasked with working the field. So the offenders who were sent to Taksab were those who committed severe infractions.
Est-ce que vous savez le nom?
Do you know the number of people who were working in the mobile unit under Takchai's leadership? And were these people only soldiers with bad biographies?
Answer. There were a great numbers of people, 400 or 500, within that mobile unit under Tajai leadership. And the number of people who were at Taksab was about 50 or 60 people. For those who were housed at mobile unit, I could see them very often, but I would see those who were detained at Taksab once in a while.
I understood this morning that you were punished because they no longer trusted you. So, because your group was involved in the writing of these unacceptable words, and your comrades were sent to Tuksa'at. So where were you sent to?
បាទអរគុណណាស់
Answer. After I was trying to refashion myself, and after I was trying to perform as much as possible my duties, I was considered a good person, and I was reinstated into my 162 regiment.
J'ai bien compris.
I understood that well, but before you were reinstated, where were you sent to? Where? I understood that it was neither at Tuksat nor in a mobile unit. So where were you sent to?
បាទអរគុណណាស់
Answer. I was relocated and sent to be stationed at my original island.
Et j'ai cru comprendre.
And I believe I understood this morning that when you were sent to your original island, as you said, you saw 17 April people. Is that so?
Answer. We lived together. I and the 17 April people lived together at Boboh and Koki. We worked there together. And I was with the units working And those people whom I lived with were doing their best so that they could be reinstated. And I told the court already about those who had linked to the former regime. And for my case, I was reinstated after I could refashion myself.
I would like to revisit what you said in relation to the 17 April people. This morning you said that you had noted that some people, some 17 April people would disappear. Did I understand your testimony properly? And do you know why these people disappeared?
Answer. We, in fact, lived and worked together. I mean, I and the 17 April people, and those who had low capacity in work, we used to work together, and they disappeared from time to time. Seeing their disappearance, I asked other people, and I was told that two truckloads or 3 truckloads of the 17 April people were sent away and killed. After hearing this, I was trying my best to refashion myself with a few or several other colleagues who had been considered having a bad biography as well.
So they would look for biographies among the soldiers, but do you know if they also were looking for the biographies of 17 April people? And do you know if in particular they were looking for those who might have been servicemen or officials under the London regime?
Answer. Regarding biography, there were no ones had links to the former servicemen within all units. And if the soldiers within those units had ties to the former regime, they would be in a difficult situation or in a dangerous situation. For those who had once detained at the Vietnamese detention facility were removed out of the military units, said the witness.
I'm not sure I fully understood your answer. In fact, I'm not even sure you understood my question. So let me put that question back, put that question again to you in a different way. I am no longer speaking about the soldiers. I'm speaking about the 17 April people with whom you worked. These 17 April people, did they look for the biographies of the 17 April people, and did they look for those who might have been servicemen or officials under the London regime among these 17 April people?
បាទតាមការដឹងរបស់ខ្ញុំ
To my knowledge, the biographies were not collected from the 17 April people. This is my, my true statement to you, Your Honor.
ce matin, il me semble.
I believe that this morning you spoke about a soul named Tadun, who was a high-ranking officer in charge of Kompong Som. Do you remember Tadun?
Answer. Indeed, I made a mention about the person by the name. I cannot recall his name, not Dum, to my recollection. It was Tadum, not Dum. Tadum was part of the eastern zone, and his troops or soldiers were sent to Kampong Sam. One regiment of his troop was sent to Kampong Sam. Tadum had overall supervision together with Tamut. However, he was below Tamut. He was under Tamut's leadership, to my recollection.
Est-ce que
Can you tell us what happened to Tadum and to the soldiers of the regiment coming from the east? Did something happen to them?
Answer. Tadum was the chief of one regiment, and he was the deputy or the person below Tamut. He had been arrested. After his arrest, other arrests were made one after another on his soldiers. Later on, his troop disappeared, and I had no idea at that time where the soldiers of Tadum were sent to.
Do you remember the date when these arrests occurred?
Answer. To my recollection, first Tadum was arrested. Later on, soldiers within his regiment were also arrested. Because Tadum had been arrested, perhaps there was something in Tadum's confession, but I did not know what was in his confession. The confession of Tadum implicated the soldiers of regiment, and later on the soldiers of regiment were sent away, but not sent back to the eastern zone, to my recollection.
Is that the only time when there were a series of arrests, or were there several episodes of arrests? Were high-ranking officers arrested later, for example, and were people placed under their authority also arrested later?
បាទ
Answer. I noticed that cadres from battalions from other units were arrested, so one after another. One time 3 or 4 were arrested. Later on, after the arrest of Tadum, the regiment or his unit was dismantled, and soldiers from this regiment were sent to be part of Regiment 61, 62 or other regiments. soldiers from Tadam regiment were dispersed. The arrests happened many times. 3 or 4 soldiers, 3 or 10 soldiers at a time were arrested.
You spoke earlier about confessions. Did you sometimes receive orders in which reference was made to confessions of people who had been arrested?
Est-ce que vous vous souvenez?
Do you remember that?
បាទនៅពេលនោះ
Answer: I had no idea at that time about the confession, but from my understanding is that soldiers under Tadam were linked to the activities of Tadam. So these soldiers were sent away. Soldiers from the east zone were no longer trusted by the upper echelon, but I cannot tell you where these soldiers were sent to.
Now, regarding confessions again, you said that a certain number of Vietnamese people who were armed were brought ashore and then sent away. So do you remember hearing confessions of Vietnamese soldiers?
Answer: when I was with the Navy, I did not hear any confession relating to the Vietnamese.
Did you have access to the radio broadcasts of DK, or you did not have access to the radio? Were you able to listen to the radio?
បាទក្នុងនោះ
Answer: yes, I heard over the radio, but I did not pay close attention to the broadcast. At that time, as a soldier, I had no free time to enjoy listening to the broadcast on the radio. The certain offenses would be announced on the radio. The confession would be the confession were broadcasted over the radio, but as the soldiers, we were not able to listen to the broadcast. As a soldier, we had to in the morning have the training session, and after that carrying dirt, and we had 1 hour for lunch, and after lunch we had to go back to work, so we had no free time at all. As a soldier, as a soldier, I myself was not able and did not have any free time to listen to the radio.
Lors des sessions de
During the training sessions you attended while you were a member of your regiment, did you ever discuss any newspapers published by Democratic Cambodia, such as the Revolutionary Flag or the Revolutionary Youth flag?
Answer: yes, I heard of those magazines at the time, but I did not. I was not really interested in those magazines. I did not bother to to make analysis of those magazines. My main task at the time were to refashion myself. In fact, I heard of the revolutionary flag of Cambodia.
Est-ce que cependant, c'était une demande?
Was it rather at the request of the superior officials that soldiers study the contents of articles written in the revolutionary flag or the youth revolutionary flag?
កាលនោះ
Answer: I was not aware of that. Perhaps it may have happened that way, but I cannot recall it.
Tout à l'heure, vous avez
A while ago, you stated that at the beginning of the training sessions you attended, there were Chinese instructors who came to train the future Marines. Apart from those instructors, did you have within the Marine and the Army Chinese advisors?
បាទអត់ដែរឃើញមាន
I have never seen Chinese advisors. I did not see them at the training session. After the inauguration of the training sessions, they left. And after that time, there were only Khmer instructors.
Et s'agissant
As regards the equipment you had at your disposal in Division 164, did you know the origins of those equipment? I am talking of weapons, ammunition, and possibly technical equipment such as radios. Did you also have radars? Did you know the origins of the equipment you had at your disposal?
Answer: indeed, there were military equipments, big and small ships. Technical equipments were originally from China. Radar and other equipments, radio communication system were all from China.
Je vous remercie beaucoup, Monsieur le témoin. Je n'ai pas d'autres.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witness. I have no further questions for the witness, Mr. President.
President, thank you. Although there is some time for questioning of this witness, the court is adjourned now. And since there are new requests to call witnesses, and the requests come from the defense counsel, President is interrupted by the co-prosecutor. You may now proceed, co-prosecutor.
Your Honor, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make a very brief statement before we adjourned for this break. I take note, we took note in the co-prosecutor's office that Your Honors had requested from the Supreme Court some of our filings one related to the rift and related to the defense sixth evidence request relative, I believe, to the defense request to call Robert Lemkin as a witness. I just wanted to make it clear to your honors that our objections to his testimony before the Supreme Court, generally, they do not apply to the trial. We are not objecting to Mr. Lemkin testifying at the trial. There's different issues in 2.1 and 2.2. And also, your honors will recall, we have long requested the testimony of Tet Sambat. All of what Mr. Lemkin knows, he knows through Mr. Sambat. Apparently, Mr. Sambat does not want to testify, so we think that that should be taken into account in deciding whether Mr. Lemkin has information that could help the court. So I just wanted to make it absolutely clear to your honors that the co-prosecutors do not object to the testimony of Mr. Lemkin at the trial in case 2.2.
I would like to give the floor first to Judge Lavange.
Il me semble
It appears that last week, and this is another matter, Vincent de Wilde, who represented the office of the prosecutors, indicated that there would perhaps be requests for other witnesses to be called regarding the Vietnamese. Are we going to receive a request in that regard? And if so, when?
Your honors, if it's permissible, I will endeavor to respond by email to your honors in defense, copying all parties, of course, today on that, to let you know when and if you can expect such a filing. I'm not prepared to answer right now, but I should be able to by the end of the day.
President, thank you. You can do so, co-prosecutor. Once again, although there is some time to continue the hearing, the chamber cannot proceed to give the floors to the defense counsel, since this witness is one of the witnesses requested by the co-prosecutor to appear in this court. The defense counsel requested to have some time to review some documents before asking this witness. Tomorrow is the last day of the hearings in 2015. So the chamber decides to adjourn the hearing today, and the hearing will resume on the 5th of January 2016. On that day, the chamber will continue hearing to TCW 1000, and then it may hear to TCW 948. Regarding the list of witnesses, civil party, and experts to be called to come and testify before the chamber will be informed by senior legal officer very soon. Thank you, Mr. Witness. To TCW 1000, the hearing of your testimony has not come to an end yet. You are therefore invited to be here again on the Tuesday, 5th of January 2016 at 9 a.m. Court officers, please work with the West Sioux unit to send Mr. Witness back to his residence or to any places he wishes to go, and please invite him into the courtroom on Tuesday, 5th of January 2016. Thank you as well, Mr. Mung Sawan, the duty counsel. You may now be accused. You are also invited to sit along with the witness on Tuesday, 5th January 2016 at 9 a.m. Security personnel are instructed to bring the two accused back to the detention of the ECCC, and please have them returned on Tuesday, 5th January 2016 before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.